Hello, welcome to Garibaldi Red as we review the transfer window for Forest and look back a little bit on a very disappointing defeat to Cardiff City and then briefly ahead to the FA Cup title weekend against Leicester City. And to do so, I'm joined first of all by Reds legend Garry Birtles. Hello, Gary, you well?
Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah, good, Matt. Thanks. You?
Good. I'm well. And our second guest today is Reds fan Michael Temple. Temps, hello, are you okay?
Morning, Matt. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Very grateful to both of you as ever. Right, I'll do a bit of admin to start with to catch up on the transfer window for everyone that missed it, and then we'll break it all down. So, Forest made 5 signings: Keenan Davies, Steve Cook, and Richie Larea early in the window. And then yesterday they added Sam Surridge from Stoke City for, we think, 2.2 million. And Jonathan Panzo, a central defender who was with Chelsea and more recently playing in France for a reported 1.5 million. I saw Sky reported that. So Forest put their money hands in their pockets. They also bid for Josh Bowler, the Blackpool winger, but couldn't get that over the line. I was told they would have gone to 3 million. But then I also saw Bournemouth rejected a 3 million. Blackpool rejected the £3 million offer from Bournemouth. So they tried hard but couldn't get that one done. And in terms of outgoings, Rodrigo Ely might well go down as a Forest quiz question answer because he left by mutual consent without kicking a ball for the club. So chalk that one up as a bad signing, but good luck to him. And Tobias Figueiredo, I think almost went, but that one didn't quite happen. And he'll be with Forest for the rest of the season, I think, although the Portuguese transfer window closes tomorrow. So maybe something could happen there. I'm not quite sure. Next, Lewis Graben was injured against Cardiff. It looked bad, but I saw Danny Taylor tweeted today he's out for 6 weeks, which is certainly a lot better than it could have been. And in terms of departures, over the course of the window, Jordi Osei Tutu went back to Arsenal. Jayden Richardson went to Notts County on loan. Tyrese Forner went out on loan. Carl Jenkinson went out on loan. Young keeper Jordan Wright went to Luton. Lyle Taylor's gone on loan. João Carvalho's gone. And we mentioned Eli, and Harry Arter came back from Charlton, which I'm sure everyone has forgotten about because it feels like a million years ago. Right, a lot to take in. Temps, how do you sum that all up over the course of a month? Happy, sad? What are you feeling?
Well, when we spoke 3 weeks ago, we said success would be who didn't leave rather than who came in. So coming out of this window with Brennan Johnson in particular and Jed Spence, obviously still part of our squad, were the two single biggest objectives for me. I think we all feel a bit blindsided by the injury to Lewis Graben, which we'll talk about slightly later on. I think all things considered, retaining those two players and recruiting to some semblance of structure and players that, for me, have clearly been lined up by Steve Cooper, one or two he's worked with before, suggest that this has been a really good window for Forest. I think, all things considered, we've navigated ourselves into a really decent position.
How do you feel about it then, Gary? Like Tim says, Brennan and Joe have stayed. A good window overall?
Hold on a minute. The wind's blown my front door open, would you believe?
We'll come back to Gary.
Can you
Gary,
believe that?
Front door.
Hold on. Bloody hell. Sorry.
Getting a tour of the Birtles mansion now.
Birtles house. I'm going to mute Gary for 1 second.
How bizarre.
Temps, I'll come on to the next question and we'll come back to Gary. Give us your marks out of 10 for the window then.
Yeah, look, it's an 8 out of 10 because we were excited about Wallace and Bowler. Couldn't get those deals done for whatever reason, but maybe not a terrible thing. We know that Lolly and Mighton are to come back. In the kind of appearances they've made this year, they've lurched between seemingly having fallen away from their very best, but also producing moments where they can break a game. So a lot depends on how well Lolly and Mighton come back into the fold as to how much we miss the lack of Wallace and Bowler coming through the door. So you're asking me for a mark out of 10. I'm going to give it an 8. I'm going to credit Steve Cooper, probably Dane and Tamor, one or two others behind the scenes who've worked to get these deals done. And what stopped them from getting a 10 is the lack of that one more kind of exciting, game-breaking winger who would have just given us the depth should Brennan find himself out for a couple of games or should we need an option after 70 minutes. I think getting some of the boys out the door, which has been a problem for us in the past. We've had Hefele and one or two others sat around the car park for a year, 18 months longer than they needed to. So credit for that as well, getting a few off the wage bill. So it's an 8 out of 10 from me.
Garry, assuming your home is now secure, give us your general thoughts on the transfer window.
Yeah, I think it's particularly good. It's just a shame that just before it closed, we get the injuries. And fortunately enough, the two players have come in are the same positions as the two key players we've got injured. I think Lewis Graben's going to be a big miss. Don't know about Cook yet. He will be a miss. But overall, I think it's been positive. You know, Davies coming in, he scored now, and his confidence will be sky high. And you know, the lad from Stoke here, you know, Steve knows all about him. He knows all about the two players, so that always helps when new players come in. So yeah, it's positive for me. I don't always look at the ones that go out because your interest ends there because they're no longer at the club. It's sad that they go, but that's the way of football. You lose players, you bring players in, and you have to concentrate on the ones you bring in and the team going forward. So that's what I always look at. And, you know, there is positive thoughts there. And, yeah, we actually know about some of these players. Before, in the past, under previous managers, we've looked at players coming in and thought, who? Where's he from? Never heard of him. You know, at least we know about these players. And the strength in depth will be improved. And I think, like Temp said, you know, the ones that haven't gone are as important as the ones who've come in. Because if you lose key players, if you lose Brennan Johnson and Jed Spence and, you know, even Joe Worrell, although he's out at the moment, you know, that's what you don't want to see, because then it equalises itself out. The ones that you bought in, then you're losing key players as well. So we've not lost no key players, but we have added strength to the squad, and that's got to be good going forward.
Do you want to give us a mark out of 10 as well? Temp said 8. What would you say?
Yeah, I'll agree with that. You know, I'd agree with that, because like I said in previous windows, it has been like, well, who is he? You know, I've not heard of him. And this time, you know, we know about players who are coming in, and this time we've got strikers in. You know, we've had a couple of strikers come in before. We've always been saying we need a striker, and it's never materialised. This time we've got 2 strikers, so that's what gets you promoted. Goals get you promoted, and that can only be a bonus.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say 8 or 8.5 as well. I mean, they moved quickly to get Surridge yesterday. I don't think there was a striker on the agenda, and they've gone out and got someone who the manager knows. And like you say, there was a plan. I mean, was that the big thing for you, Temps, that it feels like there's a plan and a thought process behind these signs? They might not come off because there's no guarantees, but at least that you can see what they're doing.
It's the faith in the people, isn't it? Because we had this transfer acquisition panel back in Billy Davies' day, but there wasn't a lot of faith in the method and the process. Whereas we've got a chief exec who had a fantastic period of trading players at Barnsley, and look at the position they find themselves in now without his intelligence and knowledge of the market. We've got a manager that gets young people, has contacts with guys that he's won age group World Cups with, and has called upon those contacts in this window. So yeah, there is a plan, but every football club would, you know, purport to have a plan. We've got the people that can stick to their convictions and follow it through to the end. Now look, as you said, they woke up yesterday trying to sign Bowler and Wallace, and ended up getting Surridge. But that's the nature of it. Bowler's turned down, moves to Forest and Bournemouth to stay at Blackpool. I mean, that tells me there's something wrong with his ambition or his confidence, or, you know, whatever it might be. But, you know, what's he thinking there? He could have progressed his career yesterday, and he's chosen to stay at Blackpool. So once that bit of intel comes to light, forget about him, on to the next one. And as you say, Sam Surridge comes up, and hopefully he'll be a hit. So yeah, faith in the plan. But yeah, I think it's a day to credit the people that delivered it.
Let's get your take on Surridge, I should say, Garry. He's a striker. A lot of Forest fans are saying, well, he's got no goal record and all that kind of stuff. But I put the opposite case. He's 23, he's played for the England 21s, and Steve Cooper knows him. What do you think about a signing like that, where there's a question mark against him, but do you see some positives in the move?
I always see positives when teams bring strikers in. and a striker's life is dependent on service. And maybe I've not seen a lot of him at his previous clubs. Maybe the service and the way they play didn't suit the way he played or wanted to play. Whereas at the City ground, he is going to get service. We know that from both flanks. We're creative in midfield, and I always think he'll be salivating at coming to Forest and getting an opportunity to, play in a team that has got the creative ability we have at the moment. Although we only had one shot on target against Cardiff, but that doesn't mean you're not creating. The final third's always the most important part of the pitch for a striker. And like I say, he's beholden on decent service crosswise, and it's all about his movement as well. Obviously, it's not just about waiting for things to happen. But when you're in a team that's as confident as this at the moment, it's a great place to come to and go into. If you transfer to a team that's struggling, you're expected to do big things, and if it doesn't happen, you can get sticks, because strikers are the ones always picked out, because if they don't score, then people want to know why. So him coming in with the way we play and the way Steve plays, and he knows Steve and what's expected of him, I'm just looking forward to seeing how he accepts the challenge, and I'm sure he'll accept it with relish.
Yeah, he scored 8 goals for Swansea playing under Steve Cooper, and I don't think he started every game. Let's link into the Graben injury then, Gary. Are there enough goals in this team to make the playoffs, Gary, you think, or not?
Well, you'd like to think so. I mean, you can't just be beholden on strikers all the time. I mean, I'll go back to when we were playing, you always had a centre-half who scored double figures. That doesn't seem to happen anymore, and you need midfield players going into double figures as well, and you don't always get that, and that puts even more pressure on strikers to come up with the goods, which is a little bit unfair. But again, Cardiff, it's not a surprise we lost to them, because it's another team that we've never done particularly well against. They always seem to beat us, find a way to beat us, and Barnsley used to have that hold on us and teams like that. So it was a surprise that we didn't get anything out of it, because their home record was shocking, but no surprise because of the hold they've had over us, and that sometimes rests within players' minds, and it can cause a problem or two. But it's the 2 goals that we conceded. They weren't particularly good goals to concede. I'm sure Steve would have been absolutely furious with the way they were conceded. But I think, again, it was really refreshing to hear him come out and not defend the performance. It was a performance that probably couldn't have been defended. 1 shot on target is not good enough. We know that. We scored in the 95th minute, which is obviously too late. And the 2 goals were stoppable for me. And if you stop those, you're still involved in the game, and you've got a chance of getting something out of it. But if you give goals away like that, then you're always liable to be under pressure.
Absolutely. We'll come to the goals in a bit more detail. Just sticking on the transfer front, does the Panzo deal feel quite necessary to you, Thames? Obviously with the Worrell injury, but also Cooper needs a ball-playing centre-half the way he wants to play. And I haven't seen much of Panzo, but from what you read about him, that's what he's all about as a defender.
Definitely. I'm a big Scott McKenna fan, but he's a defender. And Leicester won the Premier League with Robert Huth and Wes Morgan, who are both defenders, not ball players, win the headers, win the tackles. And McKenna does that better than anybody else in the Forest squad, and better than most of the Championship, frankly. However, there are times when he is shown not to be a ball player. Okay, we evaluate the goal from the weekend, tries to play a ball into midfield, gets intercepted. Hugo runs half the length of the pitch and sticks it away. So clearly, the way Steve Cooper wants to play, with Samba distributing to the 2 centre-halves, sometimes 3 centre-halves, to find a ball into midfield, requires centre-halves that can play. I think a nice mix is Worrell alongside McKenna, because he can be the focal point for distribution. There's been times when Worrell's not been around that Yatesy has had to step in there, but you lose something in midfield when that happens. So the logic of Panzo is a far more ready replacement and an immediate replacement for that distribution that we're missing without Worrell in the side. Now, look, McKenna keeps his place, obviously, because I've never seen a Forest centre half quite so dominant in the air. I'm sure Gary will correct me on that in a sec. But he's not a ball playing centre half. And that was a key recruitment need, and one that we've managed to satisfy.
Who's the best header of the ball you played with, Gary?
The best header of the ball I played with?
Yeah. Not
Me.
Scott. Obviously, Temp says Scott McKenna was the best header
Me.
of the ball. Yeah.
No, I mean,
You?
I was 6 foot, but I had the ability to hang in the air particularly well. And there's one picture of when Paul Hart was there, and I was defending a corner, and I was about a foot above everybody else. And the gaffer saw it. He said, "Son," he said, "I can't believe the elevation you get there. That is incredible." So that was one of my strengths, heading the ball. I wasn't a, sort of a Larry Lloyd header of a ball or anything like that. But I could head it for fun, and I did time it particularly well. But the best I ever saw, I think, maybe Gordon McQueen was an absolute cracker of a header of a ball. You looked at the Liverpool side. Hansen was the great ball player. He was okay in the air, but you look at people like Larry and Burns. He was good in the air. I'm trying to think who else at that particular point. Mickey Droy. If you remember a bloke called Mickey Droy who played for Chelsea and Crystal Palace, he was an absolute giant of a bloke and very difficult to play against. But that was, I was a flicker of a ball as a striker, but I had to edit it properly as a centre half. But I enjoyed both.
Can I just make a quick comment on the Surridge chat from earlier? I think if a few too many Forest fans have been too quick to judge based on his goals per game ratio. Even people replying to your tweet announcing the signing was a queue of Forest fans trying to write him off. And you made a really fair point about the attitude of some people when Antonio signed without a great goal scoring record. And there's notable other examples of that being the case. Let's get behind this lad. We didn't set out to buy a franchise striker. We thought Graben was going to be that man and be an automatic starter up top. We allowed Lyle Taylor to go out on loan, given the success of Keenan Davies. And all of a sudden, the plan has to change because he's taken a whack in a game. So for me, as you said, getting a player that he's familiar with, that wants to play for the gaffer, is a massive positive. And if he scores 5 important goals between now and the end of the season, then that transfer is completely vindicated. But we can't be in this kind of, black and white, he's terrible or he's amazing viewpoint before a player's kicked a ball for the football club. I just think it's kind of symptomatic of football fandom now, isn't it? But it was a reaction to Lewis Graben's injury. We had to get someone through the door. And I think of all the options that were available, it seems like a really logical and positive one.
Yeah, I mean, they bid for the striker at Bristol City, whose name escapes me, but they wanted 20 million quid, and that was never going to happen. So, I mean, Surridge kind of fits the bill. Like, from what you hear, what I've heard about him from the Stoke end, he's a quiet lad, and perhaps he's one that needs an arm around him. And I think Cooper's the master of that, and he obviously knows him well. So I think that would probably work in his favour. Let me go back to Forest Michael Jordan over here, Gary. I wanted to talk about Lyle Taylor's departure just briefly from your perspective as a striker. Is it a good move for him? He's played very well against Derby at the weekend. He looks a different player, frankly. Do you think he'll benefit from this?
I think he can only benefit because he wasn't given a regular run in the side at Forest. It was always, Lewis in front of him. He knew that. And, as a striker, you need fitness levels to be, the highest possible level. And before, under previous managers, I think he played a game that was alien to him, that, that lone striker role is the most difficult thing to play. I played it a few times, and it's so difficult unless you're backed up. And the way we played before, we were so defensive minded, it was difficult for any striker to come in and prove a point. The best striker in the world, could have come to Forest at some points and would have struggled with the way we played. But I think it'll give him a new lease of life, and he'll be wanting to prove a point. I think he's one of those characters who likes to do that. I think he backs himself massively, and to score on your debut as well, that is a massive bonus, and that can only be good for Birmingham going forward. And he'll have a smile on his face. He'll go out with the next game so high in confidence. They might play a different way to I don't know. I've not seen Birmingham at all this season, but they might play a different way of football to what we do at Forest. But you just wish him all the best, and hopefully it goes okay for him, because it's a short career, and you want it to be the best you possibly can, and you don't like to see people fail. And but we've got to forget about that. He's no longer with us. He's no longer part of what we're doing at the club, and we've got to focus on the players at the club now, pure and simple, just to get into those playoff positions. I think again that might have been a problem. You're so close to getting the into the playoff positions, and then you can put pressure on, but you're still outside them now, and the games will be receding. Your difficult games coming up as well, and you just want to get yourself involved, and that was a big chance to do it because of Cardiff's shocking record, but we didn't do it, and it might be a regret later in the season. Who knows?
True. 2 for Temps. Do you think we'll see Taylor in a Forest shirt again?
No, I don't think we'll see Taylor in a Forest shirt again. I heard an interview with him a few months ago on 5 Live, actually, where he kind of talks as if he'd been missold some kind of vision. He was talking about how he joined the club, but it was a life-changing move, thought he'd be challenging for automatic promotion. And he seemed to be, it seemed to feel quite, his position seemed quite contentious, i.e. that he'd been somehow missold something. He's had some good moments, hasn't he? Those 2 late goals, I think it was at Bristol last season. There's been flashes of what he can do. And I thought when he was at Charlton, he looked unbelievable against us. He had a 1-in-2 goal record under Lee Bowyer. So I think Bowyer will be able to get the best out of him, knows his man, will want to make it permanent. And I'd be very, very surprised if we saw Lyle Taylor back at Forest next season.
Second question for Temps. I'm scared to ask Gary this one because I don't think he wants to talk about him again. What's João Carvalho's legacy? You can answer that after Gary if you want, but Temps first.
I'll repeat what I've said since the moment he
arrived. That's the problem,
yeah. He's a luxury player, and if you watched his highlight reel, you'd sign him immediately. But if you watched him for 90 minutes, you'd make a very different decision. I still got this mental image of him doing 12 Cruyff turns in front of Roy Keane, and then Yatesy coming and battering him. And that being the moment in which his kind of selection is made up. So, he's not a wonder kid, is he? He'll have a good career. He'll have some highlights, but it didn't work out. And with hindsight, it was probably never going to.
Do you want to add anything on Carvalho, Gary? Or
there is no legacy, really, is there? He's left nothing there because he's never been a regular in any of the manager's plans. So you can't really assess the impact he's had. It's been very little. We've seen flashes of what he can do, but that's not good enough in the Championship. It's a brutal league, the Championship. The games you play, the quality of the teams you play against, there's some really athletic, strong sides who, will get on your back and will close you down quickly and make it virtually impossible for you to play because the oppositions know who the playmakers are. And he was a playmaker, and they saw him very quickly and how to stop him. And like I say, the Championship is fast, it's frenetic. It didn't seem to suit him. And you have to have a number of games consecutively in the Championship, especially to get used to it. You can't just pop up here and there because it doesn't work like that, the Championship. And you just wish him all the best because, the flashes we did see, we enjoyed. But, it's time to move on.
Let's talk about the Cardiff game and then we'll circle back to the kind of big promotion picture. But we have to talk about the Cardiff game first, really. Temps, you and I watched it in full. I don't know what went wrong, but it all seemed to go wrong. I mean, what's your overall take on it?
Well, we didn't get going, but we did miss half chances, didn't we? Garner flashing the ball across the face of goal for Brennan Johnson was the one that stands out in my mind. There are always going to be blips, and we've played almost above ourselves for the last 3 months. It's been incredible to watch, and we've battered some teams, but also we've nicked a fair few 1-0 by keeping it tight first half, and then backing our wide boys to do the business last half an hour when the opposition are tired. And conceding early doesn't suit that game plan of keeping it tight and then grinding them into submission in the final third of the game. So I think that's what went wrong. The pattern of how we've won games in recent weeks has been pretty similar: tight early on, score in the second half as we assert our dominance. It just didn't happen. And I was looking at the odds actually for Forest to break into the finish in the top 6, make the playoffs, and we're 4-1. The bookies don't think we're going to make it, and the reason is we've got Blackburn and Bournemouth away in February. So again, to turn that tide, which we already have from kind of relegation threatened to aspirant mid-table, to turn that tide to promotion contender, we've got to go to those grounds and get results. And there'll be huge games in the direction of this season. And I don't think we analysed the Cardiff game. I don't think Forest analysed the Cardiff game. They write it off and look within themselves to go again and go harder, because too many players made individual positional mistakes. You look at the second goal and he wasn't closed down quickly enough. It just looked a bit languid, but I don't think it's symptomatic of anything being wrong. Bit of tiredness, bit of mental fatigue, few enforced changes to the side. We've just got to get back on it pretty quickly. And Leicester's perhaps a little bit of a distraction because it's the Blackburn and Bournemouth games that really matter for me.
True. You've seen the first goal, Gary. Is that just a complete momentary brain fade where McKenna gives it away and Cook doesn't? He just tracks the runner and lets the man run in on goal? What's going on there?
Yeah, that's the worry for me. Not the giving away the ball so much. Yeah, we all make mistakes in that respect. But it was what happened after that. Always, when I went back to play centre half, I knew what the most dangerous person, was. It was always the man who had the ball at his feet. He's the only one who can score because he's got the ball. The other guy, he can't score because he ain't got the ball at his feet. And what Cook did there, I was surprised because of his experience. You have to come towards the man who's got the ball. You have to put pressure on him. And if he does the right thing and he does get the pass right and the boy scores, that's fine. But you've got to do the right thing first. And he didn't, for me, do the right thing first. You have to put pressure on him. He can make a mistake. He can put it a foot behind him, and that gives somebody else a chance to get in and nullify it. But by leaving him to run there and not coming across to him, he's got nothing to do to make his mind up apart from strike it. He got a bit lucky because he scuffed it as well. But I was staggered to see that Cook didn't come across to close it down, because when you close things down like that, you put pressure on people because they've still got to produce the goods. They've still got to make that final pass, and it's got to be a good one because they know, it could be one of the only chances they get. So, yeah, you learn by your mistakes, and we just hope that's the case. And the second one, I agree with Temps. It was a fantastic strike. There was no reaction. It reminded me of the Coventry game earlier in the season when they scored 2 at the end, and Samba had made a great save. And for me, somebody blamed Samba for that one in there. It wasn't. I don't think it was his fault. I thought it was the defenders didn't react, and they didn't react again. But he'd got to be closed down before that happens. Before the shot is, you've got to put pressure on that man who's lining up a shot, because if you don't, he can just do, pick his spot. He can take his time, and that's what he did. And he was unlucky to come off the bar, but the reaction after that wasn't particularly good. And then we score too late when Davies comes on.
There's a good question here from Lee watching on Facebook. Should we go 3-4-3? I feel less confident with a flat back four. I mean, they played a back four against Cardiff, and I agree with Lee. I feel much more comfortable with 3 at the back. What about you, Gary? Does it make much difference or not?
I just think we've looked better with 3 at the back. It gives us more license wide. The creativity looks a little bit better. It's less predictable. I think, a flat back four is, it can be exploited a little bit more. And I think that maybe had a hand in the first goal, because if we'd have had 3 at the back instead of 4, maybe that would have been a different outcome. But hindsight's a wonderful thing. And, I said, I thought, crikey, why isn't Davies starting with Graben? But apparently he'd been poorly. So I've been told during the week. But I might have said, Steve's done a brilliant job. And, I don't know what happened with Davies, how bad it was, but he was on the bench. I'm always one of those glasses half full in respect of, right, can you give me an hour? Saying to David, can you start this game and give me an hour? Or if you can't, just tell me when you come off. And he might get you a goal in that first however many minutes he's on the pitch. And that might unsettle Cardiff a little bit more. But, that's the way it was played out. Steve made his mind up on what he saw with Davies, obviously, during the week. And he's not, he's hardly made a mistake, Steve Cooper. And you still wouldn't call that a mistake, because the players made the mistakes that cost us the game. And one shot on target, he'll be disappointed with that. And I think that's maybe bad decision making in the final third. I think is always the case. And when you're not creating chances, the confidence drops, and that's appeared to be, what was going on. I don't think it's tiredness. I think it's just you realise how well you've been playing, and then all of a sudden, what you've been doing is not coming off as it has been before, and that flattens you a little bit as well. So it's a mixture of things. It's not just one thing. It's like Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough thoroughly deserved to win that game. The other one we lost, but maybe Cardiff didn't. To be fair, they made 5 changes. The people he brought in. So you've got to credit them a little bit as well, because he was bold enough to make 5 changes, and it worked. So you can't always say, well, it was Forest's fault. You've got to give the opposition credit sometimes for what they do, and I think that's what people were saying. Cardiff, I read some of the Cardiff fans' views, and they were delighted that 5 changes were made and they were able to win a football match.
They had the worst record in the league going into the game at home. Temps, do you want to come in on that formation thing? I suppose Panzo helps, doesn't he, to play 3 at the back?
Yeah, 3 at the back gets the best out of Jed Spence and Max Lowe, doesn't it? It just absolves them of some of their defensive responsibility and lets them just press that a bit higher and get the ball further up the pitch. That's the reason for me. However, in the absence of Joe Worrell, Figueiredo out of favour to some degree, sometimes it's been needs must when he's had 2 for centre half. So, I hope Panzo allows Cooper to at least have that choice, so that when it's tactically right to do so, he can unleash Jed Spence and Max Lowe.
I want to touch on one other player who we haven't talked about much for a while. Zinkernagel, Gary. He had a rank poor game at Cardiff, and he just had this spectrum of being very good or very bad a lot of the time. Is that a bit of a worry for you? Because you need senior players to step up with a bit of consistency, don't you, I guess?
Yeah, you're always going to have a bit of a spell where you're not at your best. You can't be expected with 46 games in that league to be on the ball every time. And the pressure of him, where he's come from, you expect him to be on the ball all the time. It doesn't always happen like that. And some formations, support players better than others. And maybe what was happening then didn't help him at the weekend. The fact that we went behind early on, and then the expectations are for our creative players to get us back in the game. All those little bit of pressure points come your way, and he shows enough to make you think that going towards the end of the season, he could be vital for us because of what he does give you as a player. And Steve's going to, he will move things around. He will have to rotate things and, sort of rest players because, me, people who say, players are tired, like Thomas Tuchel did the other week. They dropped a point against Brighton. All my players are tired. Then they beat Tottenham 2-0. You didn't hear him say, oh, well, my players are tired. Not a mention of that. I always think that's, don't say that players are tired, because they get looked after better than they've ever been. And, you beat Arsenal 1-0 in the Cup, and it'd be interesting to see how the FA Cup goes this weekend. Yeah, you don't ever make tiredness an excuse. Mentally, you can get tired, but physically, you shouldn't get tired because, they're not been playing 3 games a week or anything like that. So, and Steve hasn't used that. He's not used tiredness as an excuse. I think it's just pundits maybe say, well, they looked a little bit tired. That's always a very good excuse for other things. Just inefficiency and not defending, switching off, like we did for the first goal. It can come in any part of the game. Your brain can tire. You switch off for a moment. And that's why I've always said concentration is the most important word in football for me. Because at any stage of any game, at any time of the season, you lose your concentration, you're going to get punished. And, that for me is what we did. It's not happened over a number of games. I mean, the Derby game was a case in point. We thoroughly deserved to win that. The plan worked in the first half, as it has, in a lot of games under Steve so far. I think we pick the bones a little bit too much when we get beat. It's easy to do that when we had 1 point when Steve came in, and where we are now. It's very easy to criticise, and these aren't criticisms. These are just thoughts, looking at the game and looking, how we conceded the goals. It's it's a little. Hopefully, it's constructive criticism. If you can't accept constructive criticism as a player, you shouldn't be playing football, because it's only there to help and make you think, well, yeah, what could I have done there? Could I have done something better? But never use tiredness as an excuse. Maybe later in the season, when things are getting really pressurised and you are in contention. But then, nobody mentions tiredness in playoffs and things like that with teams that go up. It's a very good word to use when things aren't going your way. And that's why, the Premier League managers get on my nerves when they come out with tiredness. It's a crazy word to use. It's just an excuse. So, yeah, I think we've still got a lot to look forward to. And I think sometimes going to places like Blackburn and Bournemouth maybe suits us a little bit better, because you've got nothing to lose really there against teams like that, because you're probably not expected to get anything out of it. And you can just throw caution to the wind a little bit. And yeah, I'm looking forward to those games, more so than probably Leicester on Sunday.
You went to training before the Derby game, didn't you, Gary? Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you, without giving away any confidences and trade secrets, what did you make of it? What did you see? Can you hear us, Gary?
Well, this is not just blowing smoke again, and praising somebody for
Might remove Gary from the stream for
no reason at all. I sat there and I was mesmerised a little bit by it, because it was on the pitch at the City Ground, and Steve took the whole thing. There were videoing it, but overall, we everything, instructions all over the pitch, and it was back because it was so impressive the way the work rate that went into it, and the enjoyment was there as well. They're having a laugh. What you want from a training session, exactly what you want. Build up to a game. You had the whole thing there in front of you, and it was just so impressive to watch.
Good. Lost the signal there for a sec. Sorry. We'll come to temps and see if Gary comes back properly. How are you feeling about the promotion picture then, temps? Gary mentions the games against Bournemouth and Blackburn. Are you feeling confident going into the rest of the season now?
Look, it's a big ask, okay, and I think we got a little bit overconfident perhaps with that run of results, but we've just proved with 1 or 2 games recently. I'm thinking Middlesbrough, I'm thinking Cardiff, that there's a long way to go, and those teams at the top have been more consistent than us in recent weeks. So yeah, being 4-1 shots in the bookies' eyes to playoffs frames that. Now look, we've got to win at either Bournemouth or Blackburn to maintain close contact with the pack, and that's a huge ask. So I think we'll have clarity at the end of February. Stoke at home in between times is equally important. But if we lose at Blackburn and Bournemouth, that gap will extend, and we'll start to drift even more. So I'm very optimistic, a lot of faith in the players and the manager, but the ground we have to make up puts us at a slight disadvantage. And just don't underestimate the size of the task required to get into the top 6 from this point.
Gary, I think you're back looking at the signal. How are you feeling about the promotion race, Gary? I know you don't like to look too far ahead, but are you confident?
I'm still confident, yeah, without a doubt. With the signings we've made as well, you can't just pick the bones out of one game. It was a game that, we didn't produce our best in any sort of areas. We were maybe a little bit lax, and you have to expect that. And Steve said exactly that. That's why, a lot of people like Steve, because he comes out and he doesn't hide behind anything. If it's bad and it's not acceptable, he'll tell you it's bad and not acceptable. And that's refreshing in football, especially because we're so used to listening to the dross that, you hear in the Premier League from managers defending this, defending that. Just come out and be, honest. That's what punters want. That's what the fans want to hear. If they see their team play badly, and it's not acceptable. They want to hear that, and they very rarely get that. And when they do, I think that they're pleased about it a little bit as well. So that's the brutality of honesty sometimes can hurt players or whatever, but then you respond to it and say, right, okay, I'll show him, and you've got another game, the next game, to put things right. And to be fair, Forest have done that on most occasions when things haven't gone particularly well.
True. Go on, Tams.
Well, I was just going to come in on Steve Cooper's media management, because I think there's some really impressive subtleties at play. So pre-Derby, he knew Joe Worrall was out for 5 or 6 weeks, but he kept his counsel in the media, had them plan for all to be in the side, and maintained that message throughout, knowing full well what had gone off. After the Barnsley game, he claimed he had no knowledge of the bids for Brennan Johnson, when there'd obviously been intense debate within the grounds of Forest about what to do with this £18 million pile of cash that had been waved under their noses, and he denied all knowledge of it. So I think the counsel he maintains is a bit of a weapon, actually, and there's always a bit of an information war at play with Premier League and Championship managers. But yeah, I've just been really impressed by his ability to navigate the media, the relationship with the fans, the relationship with the players. I mean, how good is it to hear that he's inviting Garry and some of the legends from that period being invited into training? I think he's done a quite masterful job in getting himself ingrained in the club in that regard. But yeah, don't underestimate his abilities as a politician, a kind of a media manager. It's great to see, and yeah, really quite impressive from my position.
Yes, you're a savvy man. I've noted that as well. Let's finish about the FA Cup briefly for the last 5 minutes or so. How are you viewing it, Garry? I felt like Forest had a great chance and could knock Leicester out. I'm probably a little bit more reticent now with a couple of injuries to key players. How are you feeling about the game?
It's one where you've got nothing to lose again, really. If you get through to the next round, it's great. If not, then you concentrate on trying to get into the playoffs. It's one of those weekends that you say, right, okay, it'd be great if we win, but if we lose and we go out, we've still got a lot to look forward to. Like you say, I'm disappointed about the injury problems because the way we went about the game against Arsenal, people gave Arsenal all the stick saying they were rubbish, but you have to make a team look like that. And Forest made Arsenal look mediocre in that particular game, and by not changing things, but by doing the first half performance very well indeed, and then going for the jugular in the second half, it just all worked. It all came together, and Leicester won't be looking forward to coming here on Sunday. Believe me, big East Midlands derby. I can't remember the last time we played Leicester in a game. I don't know if you got the stats on that one, but it seems a very long time ago. And we saw the atmosphere for the derby game. It was just absolutely inspirational, and it'll be the same on Sunday. Because Leicester, it's just 26 miles down the M1. They'll be there in force, and they'll want the bragging rights. So will we. And I'm at the game on Sunday. I'm really looking forward to it. But I won't be massively disappointed if we don't get through. I'll be delighted if we start winning league games again and get ourselves in contention, because I think other teams around us in the league will have blips. It won't just be us losing one game. You've seen other teams slipping up against teams they shouldn't have slipped up against, at the top. So, don't lose faith at the moment. Just keep the faith, because whatever happens, it's just been inspirational from one point in the table thinking we're going to get relegated to all of a sudden having the aspiration to get in the playoffs. That was just never anywhere in sight when Steve Cooper turned up. And you've got to give them unbelievable credit. The whole team who he's got working for him. It's not just a one-man job, as he'll tell you. It's a collective thing. And collectively, they've been brilliant for the club. And I still feel there's a chance we can get in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Temps, just your thoughts on the game. It feels to me like a great chance to get Surridge a debut. He's not cup-tied. Panzo a debut. Or would you just kind of go full strength and give these lads who messed up at Cardiff a chance to bounce back, if subject to fitness of a few players?
I think he'll pick a full strength team, but those players may well find themselves in a full strength team. Wouldn't it be great to win? We'd be talking for years about that time we beat Arsenal, Derby, Leicester in successive weeks at the City Ground. However, the reality is we're not going to win the FA Cup. We might win promotion. So if we do find ourselves knocked out in the 4th round, I don't think we'll cry too many tears, and we'll immediately the chat will start about concentrating on the league and getting into this run of matches. But yeah, I mean, we've got a chance, haven't we? We saw how badly Arsenal played when they found that we could play ball, that we had players that could hurt them, that we had a striker that could poach when the moment was right. So my prediction is we'll make a good account of ourselves. But yeah, of course I want to win. I don't want this game in no way defines the season. It's the performance in the league that will.
I think the interesting thing will be who he plays up front. I think he's got to play Davies up front. You know, if he's fitting well because he's scoring goals, and confidence breeds confidence, and you want your strikers very confident, and he'll be desperate to get out against Leicester City and to prove a point. But the interesting thing, will he come in as well? Will we, see that? And that'll be the interesting thing. That's the one thing I can't wait to see, the team sheet coming through on Sunday afternoon. And what system he'll play. Will he play 3 at back? I think he possibly will now. And why not? There's no reason not to.
Last one. Does this feel, Gary, like a chance to have a right good go until the summer? And then you've got a few players out of contract. If you don't go up, you probably have to sell Johnson and Worrell. But the next few months, you would hope are going to be exciting, and Forest just give it 100%, and we'll see where it takes us.
Well, the problem for me isn't the manager, isn't the backroom staff or anything like that. It's about the players. If the players don't realise what a chance they've got, and they don't give everything they possibly can in every game, then you don't deserve to be playing football. You're in contention. No matter who plays out there, you've just got to go and give it every ounce you can possibly give. You're going to be absolutely shattered at the end of the season, but who cares if you're in the playoffs? You've got a break if you do get in the playoffs, and you have to be aspirational. It's not like saying, well, we might get in the playoffs. It's got to be, we're going to get in the playoffs. I mean, I can just go down to Division 2 and look at Mansfield. What Nigel's doing there, 8 wins on the trot, club record, and they're in the playoffs. Nobody thought they were third bottom at one point this season, and now they're in the playoffs. So, aspiration is good, and they want to get, I spoke to Nigel, they want to be automatic. They don't want to get in the playoffs. So, be aspirational and give it everything you possibly can.
Good. Anything else for our temps before we sign off?
No, just that. Let's give the new signings a chance. Keep behind the boys. What will be on Sunday, and then a massive February to progress.
Yep, absolutely. Seems like a good note to end on. Thanks very much to everyone who has watched along on Facebook and YouTube and dropped comments in. And if you enjoyed this, do subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, wherever. Give us a good rating, as I always say, and probably people don't want to hear it. But thanks very much for listening as ever. Gary, thank you very much for joining me.
Pleasure. Thank you, Matt.
And Temps, thank you as ever.
Cheers, Matt.
And we'll see everyone next week.